United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you everybody for being here. A little bit of snow out there today. And next is the approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next is approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of claims for payment.
Make that motion to approve the claims for payment.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Next is set date to receive applications for appointments to county boards and commissions. This is one we do annually. These are the applications. We will appoint them at our January 2nd meeting. But we need the applications in prior to that.
I'll make a motion to set the date for December 22nd.
Second.
Yep, it's on a Monday.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We have a change of status in conservation office, 2 of them. Jesse Farley and Corey Engel.
Temporary. Well, they're both separate, aren't they?
Yep.
Want them?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve change of status for Corey Engel, hired full-time roadside wildlife specialist, county weed commissioner.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Wes, you got anything to say?
Nope, I think he's going to be a good addition.
And I'll make a motion to approve change.
Oh. Any other discussion?
Sorry.
All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Make a motion to approve change of status for Jesse Farley. He was temporary seasonal and ended the seasonal employment.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next is Patrick Taylor with the assessor's office, part-time appraiser.
He worked for me before, so.
This is a hire, right? For
Yeah,
part-time?
right now, he's just gonna babysit my office. We have to be gone in December for a day. And Roline Bergman usually does, but she went south for the winter. So, and he worked for us, so we're gonna put him back on the payroll, more or less, is what I'm doing.
I will go ahead and make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Discussion concerning trail between Tower Rock and City of Steamboat Rock.
I don't want to step on Randy, so.
Oh, we've got a whole committee here to talk about it.
I can elaborate on the fence a little bit. I did have the fencing contractor I work with quite often met me on Monday, and he wheeled the trail to get the distance, and I did talk to Mr. Sears, and you know what he was thinking if he wanted a fence, what he would want. He said he didn't care as long as there was just some kind of a barrier of some kind. So I had him quoted as cheaply as he could do it. So that's that for that.
Couple things. I think Jessica at least informed me, and I think she also informed the board, that she had spoken with Dave Rubo to check into a little bit with regard to the property ownership up there. Jessica provided me with some documents that I think were as a result of that, at least partially. And it appears that at least a portion of the property in question, if not all of the property in question, is probably owned by the city of Steamboat Rock. There was a little portion, a little corner of a block that was conveyed from Eugene, I'm going to pronounce it Zilski, to the city of Steamboat Rock, as where for a portion where the trail cut across, it looks like a creek bed and did not follow any platted streets or alleys. And then the rest of that portion, at least, I think when you get down to the south, you start cutting across blocks and not street and alleys again. But as you're going up past there or along there, that trail remains within the lines of actually the streets. We're not talking alleys down there, we're talking streets. Now, I have not asked the city clerk to go through and do a detailed search in regard to whether anything's been vacated. I know on one map that I had, there was some notations that a street had been vacated in that vicinity, but not any of the ones particularly in question here. So you're kind of looking at the situation. It appears that the city of Steamboat Rock owns the underlying land, okay, underneath the trail. Technically, I don't know that this is within the corporate city limits of the city of Steamboat Rock. I'm not going to say so for certain at this point in time. Now, I want to call your attention, especially with the city of Steamboat Rock. A much larger area was platted by the city originally, so you will see it on maps. You'll see streets referred to, blocks and lots referred to, but not all of that was included within the corporate city limits when they went ahead and established the corporate city limits by ordinance. So you do have, and I'm going to speak generally, it's on the south and the west sides of Steamboat Rock, where you have these areas that are referred to by lot and block, but they aren't really within the corporate city limits, okay? Now, what you have in those areas is when it was originally platted, the streets and alleys were dedicated, basically conveyed to the city. So you can have the situation where the title to the streets and alleys belong to the city, but the title to the lots and blocks belong to the individual landowners out there. Now the situation is that the city really does not have control over governing those areas, except for limited purposes. I mean, one of which is like subdivisions in the 2 mile, if you would want to say rule there. But what we have here is what is probably then, and I guess I would say probably to the point, Jessica even pointed out I had done a title opinion in regard to I don't believe it was this exact area, but it was some neighboring property, which is referring to those streets and alleys belonging to the city of Steamboat Rock. Yeah. Okay. We're looking at that. The county does not have a specific easement, and when I say specific easement, does not have an easement giving the legal description for this area with respect to the trail. Now, the county does have a general easement grant within the 28E agreement, okay? That was entered into between the county and the city of Steamboat Rock. Now, I am not finding anywhere that I have seen in any of these documents any specific reference with regard to building a fence. Now, there's a general terms of maintenance of the trail, which is a county's responsibility under the 28E. I don't have one of the specific easements that was entered into with the landowners, but I would assume that that is similar as well, that the county was granted an easement for that purpose as well. but nowhere have I seen any specific reference to building a fence. I'm bringing that to your attention because, for the most part, all the county has is an easement. An easement to do things that are stated in the easement. So I guess what I'm saying is if a fence is going to be built on this property, I think it would be real prudent to get the permission of the underlying landowners. In this instance, I think you're dealing with Steamboat Rock. I don't think you have to go too far down this trail to be dealing with other underlying landowners as well. I'm going to ask, and maybe Wes knows, maybe he doesn't, whether any of this trail, whether the property was actually purchased as opposed to a grant of an easement.
I think so, because those parcels that Jessica pulled up, when you start the trail right off the blacktop, Larry West used to live there, and I think they had to purchase some of that property
You
off
have the rest
the
of the
blacktop. So there's some other parcels that have been purchased or easements have been given,
Those are in there.
to my knowledge.
Yeah, I have seen both, I believe, both acquisition and easement. And that's what it kind of, what it kind of looks like. Now, in regard to the acquisition portion, what I just said would not be true. I mean, if the county or the conservation board owned the property, then the county would have the authority to authorize the construction of a fence either on its own property or in conjunction with a neighboring landowner on the partition line.
Brian, you said you've ridden the trail. You asked last week about that segment where there's like a high tensile fence. I think there was an arrangement with that fence when that one was put in because that gentleman's got cattle.
He's got cattle there, yeah.
So,
Okay.
And I guess what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that the county couldn't play a part in building a fence. What I'm saying is, I think it would have to, number one, it's going to be by agreement. I don't think there's going to be any type of obligation. And I do think, at least in those instances where the county is not the owner of the property on which the trail is, that better be getting the permission from the owner of that property as well.
I guess I'd kind of like to see a map, because in all the, what you said there, it seemed like I didn't understand if we're putting a fence up to keep people off of the city property, or we're putting a fence up to keep people off of private property.
private property is that's what he wants.
That's so, okay.
But-
When Dave Rubo looked this up, he told me that the entire trail is constructed on property owned by Hardin County or the city of Steamboat, that the trail does not cross private property ever. It's not on private property.
Okay.
So we or Steamboat own every segment of that trail.
Okay.
Even on the west side towards the river.
That was going to be my next question. Who owns between the trail and the river?
Because they wanted a gate to be able to cross
I think this is
through
what he's
to the
talking
riverside.
Right. He would have a on either side of the trail.
This goes down
He owns
the river.
those parcels.
Yeah, and
Parcels.
you're talking about that big land, I think it's 51 and 50, that goes back to the west down to the river, and the trail is on the north side.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Mhm.
That's land that's owned by Eugene Silsky,
Mhm.
who is deceased, and it is still in his name.
Oh,
And your trail doesn't enter onto it, it just is next to it, yes.
Next to it.
And then it goes down a street or alleyway or whatever it's called.
That's another, I'm just going to bring it up here, and you're going to probably wish that I hadn't by the time I'm done, because I don't believe, Jessica, that you necessarily gave me documentation there, nor should you have. But I think we discussed that there definitely is some question as to who owns the property neighboring the trail, because there really has not been anything put of record, I believe, since the death of Eugene Zilsky. So there's a big question mark as to who may have inherited that property. I know, or I was informed, let's put it that way, that I believe it was one of the Sears had a power of attorney to act, but that would have terminated upon the death of Eugene Zilski. So, I mean, there's going to be a question there as well as if you would want to say entering into an agreement. Are you entering into an agreement with a person who is authorized to act with respect to that property?
Seems pretty safe to table this until it gets recorded as somebody, ownership by somebody, otherwise no sense of even talking about this, right? Or am I
Or I
taking
think you
that
would need
wrong?
proof of ownership.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's really would be the county's responsibility or expense to establish that.
Yeah.
Tabling it indefinitely until.
I mean, even going further with other trails, if someone comes up, I mean, I think you should have proof of ownership. If you're dealing with someone, and they want to fence up on the trail, you should at least be the person that is legally in charge of the ground, or proof of ownership that they actually own the ground. You can't just run out on hearsay or no documentation and put up a fence.
I think discussion needs to end until they can prove ownership and then be brought back up again. Because it sounds to me like we're trying to discuss a fence with somebody that doesn't own the property.
May or may not, we just don't know
Yeah.
right now.
Just need the proof.
That'd be nice to see a map. And the question that we are talking, once we get the proof, to know exactly where the fence would be and then what that footage would be.
Now, my second question is also with the tires on these properties that they were concerned about as far as the cleanup of them. Is that the parcel that belongs to the city?
This is a number of different blocks. And I'm not sure if there is common ownership there or not. My guess would be is there may not be, just by the sheer number. There's blocks 42, 43, 50, 51, 52, 63, and 64. Now, I'm going to tell you, and again, this is somewhat gray. This is somewhat of a weird agreement, this tire removal agreement. It appears to be an addendum to the 2080 agreement with the city of Steamboat Rock. I mean, basically because it says so. It says that as further consideration for this agreement, and it's referring back to the 2080 agreement, the county hereby agrees to remove all tires located on the following property. Then it lists those blocks, and then also any streets or alleys adjacent to those listed blocks. Then it gives a time of performance, which would have expired in 2003, and that the county was responsible. It's only signed off by Polly Granzo as chairman of the Hardin County Board of Supervisors, and attested to by Renee McClellan. I mean, there's no signature for any other party. One interpretation would be it could relate back and just be as an agreement for additional consideration to the agreement, the 28E agreement with the city of Steamboat Rock. Therefore, it would be an agreement between the county and the city. Now, you could take the position, well, the city isn't squawking. Okay, that's who we have the contractual agreement with. But there is a theory out there in regard to third-party beneficiaries, as where contracts can benefit somebody else other than just the parties to the contract itself. And sometimes a court will allow that third party to enforce or have the court enforce the contract. I just want you to be aware, you know, of that theory there. But it does appear that this agreement is between the city and the county in regard to the removal of those tires.
And we're still unsure about the third party.
Well, again, you run the same thing that you were talking about earlier in regard to the fence, is their claim to have tires removed is only so good as their claim or authority with respect to that real property.
So you don't know if the tires are sitting on city property, county property, or their own property?
My guess is that the tires are probably sitting on a combination of city property and private property. That'd be my guess. I haven't been up
Right.
there to take a look, but.
Wes, have those tires been there ever since you've been here?
Yeah, and you can tell they've been sitting there a long time because they use it as an old go-kart
Go-kart.
track.
Yeah.
So you can see where the tires were
Okay.
kind of serpentine to go do corners and stuff, and there's grass, and there's even trees growing up here somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, you never noticed, and I haven't either, that someone's actually rolling tires all the way down there and then discarding their tires there. Like,
They're not adding new ones.
we're not
No,
seeing
no,
new
no.
ones, it's just, okay.
But we have, I know there's been several occasions where we've had groups go in and clean some of them up. When we did the river cleanup a couple years ago,
Yeah.
they hauled a lot of them out of there. But, yeah, I don't think there's any newly placed ones there because they all look
Okay.
pretty old.
Hmm.
So the concern needs to go to the city to come back to the county, right?
I mean, technically, that's who the agreement's with, is a city. Now, like I said, I mean, there is that theory of third-party beneficiary that could bring about county liability to somebody other than the city.
Wes could open up a go-kart track.
I thought he was already driving his go-kart out.
It would be nice to get those, they are noticeable when you ride through there. I mean, it does distract, but if it's on private property, it's theirs to clean up. If it's not, then, and they're not cleaned up, it seems like we should work with the city to get those tires out of there.
Now, I'm going to tell you that the city would probably tell you, well, under that agreement, that's the county's responsibility. Under that 2002 agreement. I'll just remind you again what I told you last week in regard to statute of limitations on contracts. Normally, it's 10 years. So, I'm just tossing out potential defenses here, you know, that,
Is that something-
depending- these are legal, legal defenses, so, but they might enter into.
So is what you're saying that Wes maybe should look at all this and the board should enter into another contract once to update this, the old one, or would you
Really,
say-
I don't know that you would need to. Just by taking action, you would reaffirm.
Okay.
You would reaffirm the old contract.
Okay.
If you take action to do what it says, then you're basically reaffirming and giving up, you know, your right to say it's too old.
Hmm.
I do believe, though, that this issue, as well as the fencing issue, should probably first, basically the ownership or the rightful ownership of that property should be determined.
Right.
Mhm.
And I guess I don't know as you get, and, well, it's gotta be with the river there, Wes, but I'm guessing the rest of those blocks that are involved in that 28E run to the east, out towards the highway? Okay. Before putting county employees or whomever out there, probably wanna know whose property that is as well. Unless, I don't know that you know.
I don't know. This whole thing is kind
Yeah.
of into a fog.
Just because you got a 28E agreement with the city in regard to the removal, doesn't give the county right to enter upon private property
Right.
without permission.
Goes back to ownership again, then, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it does, absolutely.
So what do we do? Do we instruct Randy or who to go, or Wes to go forward to find out proof of ownership? Or how do we find that?
I think that it'd be nice to get the, you know, I agree with you, it'd be nice to clean up this area, but I think that somebody needs to step forward and take ownership
I think-
first and get it on record that it's done before we make any moves.
I think that Claude needs to send that letter to the city of Steamboat, and the city of Steamboat needs to bring it to us, and then decipher ownership of every property and work with a new contract. Start a new contract and figure out what we have to do. I think he needs to bring it up with the city. That's who he's truly dealing with, and the tire removal also. What do you think, Randy?
The city will have to be involved, I mean, in regard to it on a couple different fronts. Like I said, as far as I know, there has been no conveyance of any of that, I'm going to refer to it as trail property, from the city to the county. I'm not aware of any. There is that grant of easement in the 2080 agreement. And the reason why I bring that up again is, again, with regard to that fencing issue, I believe part of this we are probably dealing with dividing between property that was conveyed from Zilski to the city of Steamboat Rock, where that trail cuts across the corner of a block, and streets where the trail is located, and the adjoining property. All of which I believe, unless there has been a conveyance that I'm unaware of, is owned by the city. So the city is going to be involved with the fencing issue, at least in regard to that part of the trail. And then when you're dealing with the tires, I don't know if any of those blocks are owned by the city. I would guess not, but you are going to have a number of streets out there probably that have not been vacated that are owned by the city. So, I mean, you're going to be dealing with them, at least with regard to the tires that are there.
Wes, is this something that would take a lot of your time, just to work with Randy and Jessica to find out exactly what property lines are and who owns it?
Well,
I mean-
there's a map, and he doesn't have a copy of it. His maps come from GIS, and I was trying to pull one up here to show you kind of, but we call them paper maps in our office. When you look at it, it's easy to determine who owns what when
Okay.
you see it in front of you. And when Dave come up to explain it to me, that's the first thing he did was pull that out and show me.
Okay.
And there's a lot of property that's owned by Eugene Zilski, who we know is deceased. And then there's property where the trail enters onto what would have been a block or a residential area if it was developed. And where that trail enters onto those places, it's either owned by Steamboat or it's owned by Hardin County. So the easements, I think that I gave him copies of, were permanent easements for use, and also the purchasing of the right-of-way and acquisition of the land that we were constructing it on. And
Mhm.
I am not an attorney, but what I think it was referring to was the permanent use by easement for the land that was acquired to be furthermore used for a trail, meaning we can't sell it, give it away, and let somebody else come in and just dig it up. So, anyway, and since I'm speaking, I'll give my opinion. I don't necessarily think that it's a county conservation issue for Wes to have to shoulder, simply because his portion of it is just maintenance of the trail, not really ownership. And I just don't think it shouldn't be the auditor either, but somehow I'm involved. I just think that you have 3 cooks in the kitchen trying to figure something out, and each one of us doing our own thing. And
Well, it seems to me we've still got an unknown cook that needs to step forward and clean up our bookwork.
I
So that
wholeheartedly
we,
agree. Show me that he owns the land and I'll be happy to talk.
yeah, well, and that would be good to clean up the books and get it on record of who owns that land, and then we can talk again.
Mhm. But I took the map and I circled the blocks that the tire agreement referred to. And they were all in a area that I think involved the go-kart trail. I think it expanded further, just simply to say that maybe some other people had dumped tires there once upon a time. But I think the blocks you're talking about, the trail runs east and west on the north side, and then it goes the land goes diagonal like this, and then there's the river. And there's a section in there that I think is where the majority of the tires are located. That is the property owned by Eugene Zilski. When you get further to the right, or to the east, you're getting into the land owned by Steamboat and the county. And then further yet, when you go past, I believe it's block 54, then you get ownership by Tracy Moreland. And then I think even further yet is Hollanders, but you're outside of the realm of where that tire agreement was.
So let me get this straight. If we were to ask somebody permission to remove the tires, we'd have to ask somebody that's deceased right now.
Yes.
That's kind of tough. So I think we need to wait until somebody claims that land and gets on record.
That's, Jessica, that's who's showing it, at least in your records, is the owner of the property is still Eugene.
Yes.
Zilski is still the
Yes.
owner of record.
Yep.
And he's been deceased how long?
It's more than 10 years. Yeah.
He used to have a building uptown. I don't know if that was sold after he died.
I think that's the one you're familiar with. Uptown.
Never went uptown. Is
Yes.
it still in his name?
The county signed the tax sale certificate to Claude Sears.
Oh, okay. So
With
then-
my recommendation before he asked for the assignment to seek legal counsel to see if he was eligible for the assignment of the tax sale certificate. And he said he was, so we went forward with it. Now his attorney has told him that he's not sure that he should be able to acquire the tax sale certificate, so that's still in limbo. So we've got the tax sale assigned to him on that property, but he hasn't followed through on that either. So,
Who's his attorney? Do you know?
Somebody out of Webster City.
No.
Because he was a relative. That's why I told him to seek legal counsel before he requested the assignment, because sometimes a relative is not able to hold a tax sale certificate on a parcel of a relative. So-
I guess what I'd be looking at least at this point, Wes, you have been speaking with Claude Sears?
Yes.
Would you have a problem just informing him that he needs to establish title to the property? And he also needs to speak with the city of Steamboat Rock in regard to fencing. And that would just be my suggestion at this point, to at least, if you would want to say, keep matters moving. And perhaps after we get that established, then further action could be taken.
Sounds good.
Sounds good with me. Thank you. Any other questions? Next, I'll go to contract with Solutions, Inc. with recording the recorder's imaging project. I've been aware that they rewrote the contract with the recorder, so we don't need this on here anymore. Next is certification of cost allocation plan. And we do this annually.
I'll make a motion to approve the certification of cost allocation plan.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Oh, we had a department head meeting, and one of the questions that was brought up was the closing of the north steps for winter weather. And I said I'd put it on the agenda for open it for discussion. Any ideas? Some of the problems we have with this is that the boiler system, vents underneath the steps, it melts the snow and then freezes down on the steps right away. And keeping it open during the winter weather, it's been closed at one time, that we reopen it at another time, and sometimes it gets slick, sometimes it doesn't. Conditions like today, it would be slick out there, even though he does have it salted. He does not have the entire step salted yet. So I brought it on the agenda for opinions. I have talked to Jody in some of these cases. I'm open up for your opinions.
Well, even this morning, I parked out front and walked up towards those stairs, and I looked up and saw him. I went around to the left door. I just didn't even want to go up them. And he did have a spot, but I think they are a little bit of an insurance liability, just because on a day like today when it's snowing, there's a lot of steps there, and Jody can't be out there every minute, every second, keeping them clean. And just to the left, there's probably within 15 steps is a door that they can go in with an elevator that's handicap accessible. A lot safer entrance than, I think, than the north doors are at times. I know, Lance, you mentioned that Jody maybe could come up even with a way to block it during the
Bad weather.
And then open them back up. And I wouldn't be opposed to that, but a day like today, they were, you just can't be out there every minute. And they're beautiful steps, but they are sharp and hard. And if you fall, it is going to hurt. So with a door that's accessible that close to it, that's a lot safer entrance. And I've been to quite a few other courthouses, and I've had to walk all the way around them trying to find the only door that's open. So it's not something that goes on in the state that they don't have them open or closed. So it's just having good signage of where to go, I think.
I definitely agree. A temporary closure during bad weather is probably the way to go. And, some winters we have good weather most of the time.
Mhm.
We just want to leave it open then.
Mhm.
So yeah, we could chain it off.
He mentioned a plastic post, plastic chain, and then closing it in bad weather. It's not a large cost. Anything's cheaper than a liability out there. And then we would still keep the steps clean, nice looking. It'd be removed. We won't leave the rust stains on the concrete. We don't want steel out there. I think it's a good idea closing it in bad winter or bad weather.
Well, the nice thing about it too, then it lets him work on the spots that are really needed. I mean, they take a lot of time to clean.
Yep.
And so when he's on that,
Right.
he should be maybe over on the sidewalk. So we are asking a lot of him in a bad snow to keep everything clear, perfectly clear.
So do we want to direct Jody to block that for bad weather?
Yep.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we direct Jody to come up with a plan to shut that off during bad weather and be able to open it back up during nice weather.
Okay.
Do you want that brought to the board, his plan, or just go ahead and do it?
Pretty straightforward. I don't know.
I'll just leave it right there then.
Yeah, leave it
Okay.
there. And I'll second that.
Then move second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Utility permit, secondary roads. Lost Darrell.
Cooking the turkey or what?
Huh? Just visiting with Wes real quick, a few things before budget. What do you want?
Utility
road.
permit, secondary roads.
Secondary roads.
You mean Randy's done talking?
Aw, that's hurtful.
And Jessica.
That I can understand. Really?
Utility permits?
There's only one person that
Nothing.
can talk
Okay.
more than us.
Secondary roads.
I'd like to hide.
Yeah, we're looking for stuff to do right now. There isn't much going on.
Snow's coming. You'll have plenty to do.
It's here.
It's here.
Yep, as we speak, so. We posted a position for office manager. The common knowledge that we're losing Lori. And then secondary roads, but the county will keep her, so I've posted that internally for 10 days and then see what we have, and then if we need to, then we'll post it outside of that, so. Other than that, Do you have anything else for me?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
Any other business?
Yes. Would like to have on
Here he
next
goes.
meeting, next meeting's agenda, transfer of property from Hardin County to the city of Buckeye. I think it's, don't put this in it because I'm not certain, I think it's like Lot 6, Block 2. It's what was brought up by the mayor of the city of Buckeye previously. I got some additional paperwork in and got the legal description finalized, so I think we just need to get the first matter on in order to set a public hearing then with regard to the transfer.
Got that, Nancy? All right, thank you. Any other business? Hearing none, I'll ask for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved to second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.
Thank you.